And as we go through the conference, the presenters will be introducing themselves. My name is Maria Juarez-Stouffer. I am the Chief Program Officer at the Children's Services Council. We are really excited to be here this afternoon and to share information about these programs with you. So let me see, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Just some points, if you guys wouldn't mind going on mute until the Q&A part happens, that would be really helpful so that we can control some of the feedback. The chat is disabled. We would prefer that if you have a question that you ask the question when the Q&A time happens. We will be breaking multiple times throughout the presentation so that to give you an opportunity to ask questions regarding what we presented. And we're really hopeful that our presentation is gonna be thorough enough that you're not gonna have that many questions after we're done presenting. We do have a lot to cover. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start. So this is the pre-bid conference for the family support procurement. And the family support procurement includes 5 application areas. So it's family strengthening is one of the applications you can submit under. Hold on, I have my notes. Our moms programs is a second application you can submit under. Kinship program, another application you can submit under. The kinship legal is a 4th application you can submit under. And supervised visitation is a 5th application you can submit under. So while you're determining which areas you're interested in, please make sure that when you begin the application, that you are completing the application for the correct area of interest. Okay, so that's important. Please make sure that your application matches the area that you're interested in. So our family strengthening programs, or family support programs, I'm sorry. We're looking for applicants that have expertise in programming that's related to child maltreatment reduction or prevention, maternal emotional distress support, and support services for youth and their caregivers in relative and non-relative care that assist in maintaining safe and stable homes. So again, those are the family strengthening programs, or the supporting moms programs, or the kinship programs, or kinship legal programs, or supervised visitation services. All those are under this procurement. The applicants that can apply under who may apply are nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations that are incorporated or qualified to do business in the state of Florida, or governmental entities. And I want to point out that we are prohibited from funding any entity under the jurisdiction of the Department of Education. So the School Board of Broward County, including public charter schools, are not eligible to apply under this application. So I'm at the who may apply section of the procurement. So next I want to talk about fund availability. We have allocated approximately $20 million to the family support RFP. And we are anticipating multiple awards. Wanted to share that, and many of you already know this, you've worked with us before, but our procurement process is that community raters are the folks that review and rate applications. CSC staff do not rate applications. We do review them, but our ratings aren't considered when awards are considered. So the ratings the applications are reviewed and rated by staff, by community raters, community members, and those community members determine their recommendations as a committee regarding who's going to be recommended for funding. Those recommendations are presented at the May council meeting to our council, and then the council makes their vote regarding who gets recommended for funding. So I wanted to, for those of you who haven't worked with us before, to understand that all ratings and recommendations are done by community members. And also wanted to share that you are able to submit applications under the different areas. So you can submit applications under family strengthening. You can submit applications under an application under moms, an application under kinship, etc. So you have 5 applications and you can submit applications under different areas. So let's see, with that, are there any questions to what I've shared so far? And if you do have questions, the best way, if you just you can raise your virtual hand or just unmute and ask a question. No questions? Okay, great. Then next on the agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Madeline Jones, who is the Assistant Director in Program Services, and she oversees the family support. She oversees the family support procurement and the family support program. So Maddie, I'll turn it over to you. And Maddie's going to start on page 7, where it says staffing requirements, G on page 7. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, Maddie, give me a minute. I just realized that I forgot to cover the timetable. Let me go back to that. Apologize for that. On page 4 is the timetable, and we would suggest that you guys print this out and keep it someplace that you are referring to it on an ongoing basis. After the pre-bid closes today, you have until January 25th at 4 o'clock to submit written questions. So if there are questions that you didn't think to ask during this pre-bid, after the pre-bid ends, you can still submit written questions in the CAP system until January 25th, 2023 at 4 o'clock. So wanted you to be aware of that. We'll post the response to the questions in the CAP system, and we'll post those responses by February 1st. A very important deadline that I want you guys to highlight and to be very cognizant of is the deadline to submit agency financial viability. And that deadline is February 6th at 4 o'clock. If you miss this deadline, if you do not submit your agency financial viability information by this deadline, you cannot proceed with the application. So I really want to stress to you how important that deadline is. Kathleen Campbell, who's our Director of Finance, she will be speaking later in detail about the agency financial viability and answering questions about that. But I really wanted you guys to be cognizant of how important that deadline is. Yes, Erica.
Quick question. Would this document be available to print? Are you going to make it available to print? Because I didn't see it on my invite.
So Tricia, I would turn it over to you.
Yes, this document is available to print within the CAP system. So once you click on the application that you want to submit for, all the documents are available within. And when I go over my piece on CAPS in a little bit, I'll share my screen and show you guys exactly where you can find the documents.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Tricia. So again, please pay very close attention to the February 6th deadline. You must submit your financial information by that deadline in order to proceed with this application. So that's very important. Our financial viability review period begins on February 6th and ends on February 17th. We will notify you of your financial viability test results, though, by February 10th. So by February 10th, we'll notify you of the test results of your financial viability. If by chance you are submitting with the fiscal sponsor. So then you're, let me see. So I'm looking at deadline for submission of fiscal sponsors audited financial statements via CAPS. The deadline for submission of the fiscal sponsor is February 17th at 4 o'clock. And then very important date is the deadline to submit the application is March 7th, 2023 at 4 o'clock. So there is no exception to that deadline. So please don't wait until the last minute to submit your application. We know that there can be at times challenges with the internet. So you don't want to be in a position where it's 3:50 on March 7th and you're trying to frantically complete an application. Please complete it earlier to avoid any situation like that. So the applicant interviews will begin on April 14th and they go through April 21st. You will be notified via email of the date and time of your applicant interview. And then, as I said earlier, the contract awards will go to the council on May 18th, and they will vote on those awards. And whoever is awarded funding, those contract negotiations will begin pretty much the day after the council award determination. And then the contract effective date for these are all October 1st of 2023. Are there any questions about the timetable? Nope. Okay. So now I will turn it over to Maddie, and she's going to start with staffing requirements on page 7 of the document.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to see so many faces. We have worked really hard behind the scenes on producing this beautiful document that I'm sure you have read in its entirety, or maybe not, but that's okay, because that's why we're here today. We're really here to go through section by section and help you all understand what it is that we're looking to fund. And since this is our one and only opportunity to really go through section by section and talk about the procurement, because we are under a cone of silence officially after this. I really encourage you to stay for the entire meeting if you can and listen. And I'm going to be stopping after each section to give you all an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. No question is a dumb question, for lack of a better word. But really, now is your opportunity. You can also, of course, after this meeting, ask questions in writing. And I also want to mention that if you do ask a question and I'm not able to answer, I will let you know that we'll answer in writing. So that way everybody has that information to you. But I am going to read, I'm going to highlight certain sections for you, and I am going to read through it. And I hope that doesn't feel too painful for you. But again, it's just really important that we cover certain information. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't read the rest of it, or it doesn't mean the areas that I didn't mention aren't equally important. But again, this is a great opportunity for us to just discuss what it is that we're looking to fund, and give you an opportunity to see if this is something that you and your organization are interested in pursuing. So starting on page 7, as Maria said, we're going to talk about the staff recruitment and retention piece. So when developing your budgets, it's really important to consider and to have a game plan as to what kind of model you're going to be implementing. And when you decide on that model, it's really important to decide what staffing positions you require for that model. So for example, if you're looking to implement a program that requires licensed clinicians because it's a therapeutic program and that's what the model says, or for example, with legal kinship services, we would need to have attorneys. So if you have a licensed professional or an attorney that's required, the minimum salary is 60,000. So be sure to put that in your budget. If the model requires a master's degree, then the minimum requirement is 55,000. If the model requires a bachelor's degree, the minimum requirement is 45,000. And if you have a high school or associate level staff, the minimum is $15 per hour. So we're going to move to the next section, which is staff development and training requirements. We have included in the document in trainings that are encouraged, and we also have trainings that are required for each section of programming. So I encourage you to look at the list, but the good news is that CSC does offer free training for funded program providers that are funded through us, and that we have to. So I lost my place. I apologize. Okay, I'm back again. I'm back. So all required trainings offered by CSC are no cost to program provider staff. If a training is obtained elsewhere, the cost of those trainings may be included in the program. So on the next page, on page 8, you will see that to access the CSC training calendar, just to do a quick check on what we may or may not offer, if it's outside of those required trainings, you can click on the link, and that should take you right into our amazing training collaborative. So the next section is regarding our research piece. And in addition to measuring impact in continuous learning, we also have attachment 15. And we strongly encourage you to review that in depth. Again, there was a lot of work that was put into that document. I'm not going to go through all of it now, but I do, again, really suggest that you look through it before you decide what program you want to apply for, what type of program, because it may be really helpful to you in making that decision. So we're going to move on to page 15. Thank you, Andrea. And we're going to get right into family strengthening programs. So family strengthening programs are its own separate application. So like Maria said, we have lots of different programs under this RFP, but family strengthening is one of those that you would submit a separate application for. So the intent of family strengthening programs is to develop a voluntary, that's a key word, in-home and community-based services, which will prevent or address child maltreatment and strengthen resiliency for impacted youth and their families. The eligibility for family strengthening programs is families who reside in Broward County and who are at risk for child abuse and neglect, and families in crisis that have their children living within the family. Children must be between birth and 17 at the time of enrollment, or children and youth having special needs, developmental or behavioral needs are up through 21 at the time of enrollment. Family strengthening programs will have a couple of the following risk factors. So be sure to read that list on your own. Types of referrals for family strengthening programs on the next page, page 16, for those that would like to follow along. Referrals to CSC Home Builders Program can only be made by BSO, by Broward Sheriff's Office, Child Protective Investigations Section, BSO CPIS. For families that have one or more children in pending placement outside of the home. For the other programs, families can make self-referrals. They can, programs can receive referrals from early learning, community agencies, other family support delivery networks, other social service agencies, school board. So as you see, there's a wide range of options for other referrals for all other types of programs. So moving on to page 17, we're going into model programs and services. And again, this still is specific to family strengthening programs. So examples of the types of programs that meet the intent of this procurement follow, but the programs listed are not meant to be an exhaustive list. Some of these programs may be cost prohibitive unless, as an agency, there's already commitment to the model that produces cost efficiencies. So for example, if you have already been funded with a specific type of model and you have in-house staff that have been trained to train others, that would be an example of cost efficiencies. Availability and location of model training should be taken into account for initial staff training and for managing staff turnover. Appropriate and reasonable costs may and should be included in the proposed budget. So I'm going to read through all of the examples of the models that we have included in the document, but again, this is not an exhaustive list. So under family skills and caregiver training programs, we have included a Circle of Security Parenting, Parent Child Plus, Parents as Teachers, Nurturing Parenting Program, Strengthening Families Program, ACT, Raising Safe Kids Program, Step by Step Program, Supporting Fatherhood Involvement, Nurturing Fathers, and 24/7 Dad Fatherhood Program. The family therapy services and therapy models that are included in the document are functional family therapy, multi-systemic therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, abuse-focused cognitive behavioral therapy for child physical abuse, alternatives for families, a cognitive behavioral therapy. So in short, AFCBT, brief strategic family therapy, relational therapy. And then we have home builders. Home builders is an intensive in-home service for high-risk populations. So for home builders is the best practice model. It's the only one under this RFP that will be considered to address that high-risk population. So please read through the details of that if you're interested in home builders. So again, if there's another model that meets the intent of this program area for family strengthening, we really encourage you to explore other options and go ahead and submit that proposal. But again, keeping within the parameters that have been outlined in the document. So we're going to get through just a couple more sections and then I'll open it up for questions. So next we have on page 21, program components for family strengthening. So programs that serve this population must demonstrate the provision of the following components. So we need to have initial assessment, trauma screening, and that's only if it's for therapeutic programming. So if you're offering therapeutic services, that's when you must include a trauma screen. We also have ages and stages, treatment and service plans, case management, and promoting family self-sufficiency. So providers really should, we really encourage you to develop a relationship and a partnership, if you don't have one already, with Broward County Family Success Centers, Career Source Broward, United Way of Broward County, Center for Working Families, and programs or other community resources that focus on employment, career advancement, income enhancement, and financial and asset building services. Providers should also develop a partnership with Hope South Florida Outreach Program to assist with housing stability as applicable. We have heard you loud and clear in the many focus groups and surveys that we did as we prepared for this document. And we know that this is something that is a great need for our families. So again, this is something that we really encourage you to come in with those relationships established in a plan. We also need to see parental involvement. And this one is also really, again, not any less important than not any more important than the others, but I do want to highlight flexibility in service delivery. As we see some families, caregivers that are working 2 and 3 jobs, the flexibility of service delivery is super important. So we really want to ensure that individual families are provided primarily in the home, but may also be provided in community locations that are convenient to families as needed. This includes times that are convenient for the family and their schedules. So it will have, well, you may have weekends, evenings, whatever the family needs. Programs are also encouraged to build flexibility into their service delivery to allow for addressing families that may be dealing with trauma or crisis and may need more frequent services or longer services. All of our programs are going to need to have thorough documentation of your service provision, a client response. This is not only limited to case plan, timely update case plan updates, progress notes, closing summaries, and all the information that paints a picture of the awesome services that you would be providing. So programs to serve this population may also provide the following program components to enhance service delivery. So this includes group sessions, childcare and transportation, family building events, alumni services. We are excited about this. We've done alumni services in the past for some program areas, but this is something that we really would like to see enhanced to help families establish that network and the connection and the support of other families receiving services. So these services may be provided ongoing in the form of open support groups, also invitations to families to participate in family building events as applicable. Alumni services really, as I mentioned, just provide that opportunity for families to stay connected. Also, we would like to see our program providers participating in the system of care. And so for family strengthening providers, you're encouraged to become actively involved with the Children's Strategic Plan, which brings together various entities to provide input and work collaboratively on system issues that impact child maltreatment and family stability. That was a lot. Okay, now we're ready for questions. If my team can help me see if we have any virtual hands raised.
I'll raise a real hand if I may.
Please do. Yes, wonderful. Jump right in.
Thank you. Hi, Madeline, and hi, Maria. I'm here representing CBS Television. We have been marketing partners with your community and communications and community engagement team for several years. And I've had the pleasure of working directly with Andrew Leon and his team for the past 4 years. I'm just wondering, is there funding for only the programs that are being discussed today, or is there funding for an awareness and outreach communications campaign?
So let me answer that question. The applications for funding are for robust programming. The budget, so each organization that submits an application, they can add within their budget if they need something for marketing for that program. but there isn't a separate application only for marketing. Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you, Maria. In simple terms,
Welcome.
would I be accurate in believing that if, let's say there is, an entity that secures funding, it's possible that they would have a marketing budget set aside for the program?
Yes, within their budget, they're allowed to request funding for marketing for that
Okay.
program.
And would your organization then follow up with, I guess I'm trying to establish if there's a way that my television and media entity can partner with you and any entity similar to what we've been doing for several years with CSC.
So I think yes. I mean, certainly marketing programs is important. And what we can do, since unless you're going to be submitting an application to do programming, we can have a separate conversation with our public affairs department, regarding marketing of programming, broad marketing of programming. CSC funds over 100 programs, so we can have conversations, differently than this procurement about that.
That's great, Mary. Thank you. And I'll proceed accordingly with you and the team. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So in no particular order, but I see Irie. You have a question?
Yeah, I was trying to find the unmute thing here, which, 3 years later, you think I know where it is, but it's still a challenge sometimes. So I have two questions. One is the system of care support. Are you, when you're talking about that, are you talking about the stuff that we're already doing, or are you talking about putting that as part of a unit-based contract? Or I'm a bit confused by that.
That's an excellent question. I believe I can clarify that. No, when we refer to the system of care support, that means really being actively involved in community meetings and campaigns that support child abuse prevention awareness, such as Broward Aware, Children's Strategic Plan. Those are some examples, and it's not something that we would include in the contract for separate billing line item or anything like that.
Right. I mean, I know that one of the things that we have struggled with currently is when there are community events for those things where we ask the counselors to participate, it takes away from time that they're spending with families and thus takes away from reporting units. And so I thought that there had been a change in that particular line of thinking. So you're just talking about what we're doing now, which is, it's awesome, and we continue to plan to do it. It's essential that we do that. And the other question that I had is the other thing that the counselors struggle with sometimes is our program serves only children with disabilities. So when we do ASQs with families, it becomes hard for the families to answer the questions, especially the children that are that need lots of support and whose scores at the ASQ are zeros, with most of them. So I just wondered if there had been any discussion or consideration about, for programs that provide services specifically to children with disabilities who are already identified. I mean, all of our kids meet criteria, otherwise they get referred elsewhere. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it does become emotionally difficult for families to have to answer those questions. Again, it becomes sort of a re-traumatizing activity for them.
So Maddie, if it's okay with you, so Irie, the purpose behind the ages and stages is to identify children that need additional services. If you are working already with the child that has those supports, then we can, in contract negotiations, talk about that further.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the reason behind having it, and I absolutely support it.
Thank you, Irie. Okay, next I see Sean.
Hi, Maddie. Hi, Maria. Thank you so
Hi.
much for conducting this. We really appreciate it. My question is regarding the partnerships, and I don't know if there's been a change, but we have, and you know, we have partnerships, as do I'm sure all the other providers, with so many different community entities. We don't have formal agreements with them. That would be really cumbersome and administratively heavy, but we have those relationships. So in the RFP, is the expectation to have formal agreements with all of those that you list, or can we describe our relationship and the mutual collaborative work that we do for the families?
So, Sean, we're not requiring formal agreements. We are okay if you can describe the relationships that you have with those partners in our community.
Wonderful. Thanks, Maria.
Okay, next I see Julinka.
Hello, my name is Jelinka Cadet from Broward Children's Center. I did have a question about the staff requirements. I know it says about high school diploma, bachelor's and master's. I wanted to know about more of interns, if I wanted to get some student interns involved, and is that okay to basically write an RFP?
I think we'll need to answer that in writing.
Okay, thank you.
And can you just provide a little bit more clarification?
More
The
so of,
student interns, would they be full-time staff? Would they be the ones that are primarily providing the program? Or are you talking about just as an example, a partnership with one of the universities where you are an intern site for that university?
the second one, we're an intern site and we have interns that want to kind of shadow some of our main individuals that provide that direct care support, and kind of putting that in basically in writing in the RFP that our interns are supporting us.
So that's fine. You can develop a partnership with the university and have interns that support the staff in that program.
Perfect, thank you.
Is that
And I'm
something
sorry,
we
let
still
me
need
go-
to answer in writing, Maria, or is that
No,
that was it? Okay,
well,
that's what I thought.
we will answer in writing because it'll be part of the Q&A.
Right, okay,
Um,
thank you.
But and I'm sorry, let me just quickly, Sean, just to go back to your question about partnerships, although we don't require the formal partnerships, if you happen to have formal partnership agreements, we do encourage you to include that in the RFP, but it's not required. If you have it, you can share it.
Thank you.
Okay, next I see, I believe Janine, if that's correct.
Yes, that's correct. I'm Dr. Janine Bassell from Kids in Distress and Family Central. I had two questions. The first one was on page 20 regarding the cultural models. I'm assuming that's just something that is available to add into existing models and not something that is required, correct? Okay. And then my second question was.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
that's additional information.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. And my second question was, under family strengthening, we can submit in CAPS multiple programs for this.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
I know we have like multiple like the moms and the kinship, but I just want to make sure that in CAPS, we could do multiple under family strengthening. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Christina Graham.
Hi there, Christina from Children's Harbor. I've got a question about the financial viability. We had an update just this week on our audited financial, and I need to find out if I could submit a fresh copy of it. How do I go about doing that?
Christina, when we get to the financial viability section of the pre-bid, is it all right at that point if we address that?
Of course.
Okay, that way we'll do it all together. So you're
Okay.
saying that you have an updated audit, and how can you submit that updated audit?
A correction was made to the audited financial, and we just received that this week. So I want to make sure that you have the latest and greatest.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely address that during the financial viability section.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Yonela.
Thank you. Hi, Madeline and everybody. All right. After having the experience working with family strengthening after pandemic, and then the last 2.5 years, right? We definitely understood that we have to making sure start doing more in-person services. Now with this procurement, can we continue in a sense providing many of the services, like for example, all the psychosocials, all the family building events like we're doing in person, and our group sessions continue being successful the way it is right now with attendance and everything virtually? Can we do the mix with this procurement?
Yes, this procurement still allows for hybrid services. We do encourage face-to-face services whenever possible, but we do allow hybrid services.
Yeah, it is a part of our plan, all that piece and case management to do that face-to-face and the family building event, which is the piece of the graduation altogether. But at the group session, a weekly basis, we notice that the families are more committed to be with us there and the virtual piece of it. So that's was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Bethany.
Hello, everyone. Bethany from Boys Town. One question for the description. So, for instance, PC Plus, which is Parent Child Plus, which is one of the programs you guys listed as a, I'm probably going to use the wrong word, preferred provider or evidence-based provider model. That model, for instance, does not require case plans or assessments. So is that something that would be required per this RFP as like an overlay to the actual evidence-based model components?
Yes, so we do require the assessments, as we indicated in that section of the procurement, and it would be a service plan, basically indicating this is what you're working on with the family.
Okay.
And so, and the details of that, I mean, we can, for funded providers, we can negotiate how that looks to align closer with the model.
Okay. Okay, that answers that question. And then my other question is, I know that this is a unit rate. Is there any opportunity after application to discuss being more of a cost reimbursement, so you're paying for salaries versus a unit rate, depending on the model submitted for this RFP?
So this RFP, we are bringing forward the unit of service reimbursement in this procurement, and our currently funded providers are now also unit of service reimbursement. During the pandemic, we did allow more flexibility and in allowing cost reimbursement, but CSC's reimbursement, the methodology across really almost all our programs is a unit of service rate. We do negotiate that rate with providers. So we look at your budget, and then we look at how many units are to be provided, and then that's how we come up with the rate. So it's not a set rate. You know, as you may find in other funders, it is a rate that is negotiated with the provider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Angela.
Hi guys, Angela from Kids in Distress. Quick question, Maddie, for the trauma screen, we will not need it for kinship and Kid First, but we will need it for home builders.
It is for therapeutic programs, is how it's stated in the document. So I'm not sure with Kid First if you would be proposing a different kind of model, but just keep that in mind that it has to, if it's a therapy program, then you would need to identify a trauma screen that you would implement.
All right. You got it.
And we can provide, we'll look at, so for the other ones, right, kinship, you do not need a trauma
Case
screen for
management.
kinship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, I'm sorry, what was the other one you said, Angela?
Kid First and home. I know for home builds, it's more therapeutic. So I'm
Yeah,
just trying
so
to make
yeah, for
sure,
kids-
since we've always done it in all those programs for years, just want to make sure we can focus on taking that out because they are in our assessments, some of those questions.
Yeah, so for Kid First, as I know Kid First to be, that as parenting education and case management, that would not require a trauma screen. It doesn't mean that the program can still choose to do the trauma screen. We at CSC are not requiring it. And for home builders, we'll look at the model and answer that in writing.
All right, thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
Maria.
Yonela and Bethany, I still see your hands up. I just want to make sure do you have another question?
Yeah.
You do. Okay, Yonela.
The families that definitely on the piece of desired population, right, to serve, reside in Broward County, we are completely understanding that piece. For those families that have their work and their children out of Broward County, like for example, they live here in Broward County, but their children study in West Palm Beach, for example, because the mom works in West Palm Beach and they enroll the child in West Palm Beach. That's going to continue to be good because the family live in Broward County, correct?
So any family that's served with Broward County property tax dollars, which is through CSC, has to be a family that resides in Broward County. Where they work and or where their children go to school is not part of that consideration. You have to be a resident of Broward County.
Thank you.
Sean, did you have another question?
I do. I love the addition of the alumni services, but I'm a little bit confused. Is it kind of like a step down model where the family still is enrolled and part of SAMIS, or is it something else that we'll figure out during contracts and later on how we register them and bill for them and you know, is it something that there's some type of continuity with the families in the alumni services, or can it be kind of inconsistent for families? Like I guess I just want to hear more about your vision about it.
So the alumni services are for families who successfully complete the program.
Right,
So they
yes.
have completed the program. As far as how consistent the services will be, it'll depend on what each applicant is proposing to do to offer families that successfully complete the program, and also how much service those families want. So it could be a monthly family support group that families who successfully complete the program are invited to attend. The agencies would be billing for those services, the provision of those services, And as far as the particulars of SAMUS, we'll work that out when programs are awarded funding. Then we're going to go to that level of detail of how we track that in SAMUS, et cetera. So it would be what the applicant believes that their families need and or want. So it could be, like I said, a monthly group. It could be more consistent services, than that.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I see Vanessa.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Vanessa from Moms. I may have missed this, but this is regarding the family skill and caregiver training programs. For the parenting programs, are we able to choose other curriculums outside of what's listed? Or are you saying that we have to choose between the ones that is listed?
So you can choose other curriculums aside from the ones that are listed. The ones that are listed are curriculums that we've looked into and that we feel confident meet the intent of the procurement. But if there's another curriculum that an applicant has reviewed and feels meets the intent of the procurement, you're welcome to submit for that curriculum.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Felicia?
Good afternoon, Felicia Pittman, Children's Harbor. Regarding alumni services, are value-added funds for those groups available to alumni participants as well as current participants?
Alicia, can you repeat the question again? You said you were talking about alumni services.
So for like the value-added services, like for example, we provide for our groups an activity kit for the participants to be able to interact during the group. Would we also be able to use funds for the activity kits for the alumni services as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Eddie?
Hi, yes. So each RFP, we've cycled around and, added an evidence-based practice that filled in a gap that we noticed. And similarly, I think our next goal is going to be there too. So is there, because I know, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the funds are remaining the same as they were last procurement, correct? So should I focus more on the additional modality that I'm layering on or expanding my program to meet more people's needs? Is there a preference for CSC with regards to a focus, or can I have both of those things included in my RFP?
Eddie, repeat your question one more time.
So I'm looking to add an additional model for needs that we see or gaps in service. And I'm also looking to expand. Should I focus on one rather than the other, or my current focus of both is good?
So I would say that based on the knowledge and experience that you have from the families that you have served and the referrals that you're receiving and the system knowledge you have, then you would use that to determine how to handle whether you expand one, whether you bring in another. That's really not a determination we can make for you.
Okay.
That comes from, knowing the system of care and what the system of care calls for.
Okay, so follow my instincts. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. And I did want to, when the question was asked regarding the parent education models, I want to be really clear. The parent education, the answer that I provided is specific to the family strengthening application. So within the family strengthening application, we give you a list of parent education models. And if there's another model that you feel meets the intent of the family strengthening application, you're able to submit for another model. The word moms was used in the question. If the question is specific to the mom's application, then there are specific parenting models that are in the mom's application, and those are the models that within that application you're required to provide. I just wanted to make sure that the question was specific to family strengthening, which is the area that we're talking about right now.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Maria. Bethany, do you have another question?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I'm sorry, going back to the fee-for-service reimbursement modality, if we're starting a new program and we know that we're going to have some startup, where we're hiring and training new staff, so we're not providing services in which to be reimbursed for fee-for-service, how does that work from a budgetary perspective?
So for, we'll get to the section when we talk about the budget, but we do allow for a startup period, which is 90 days, where you would be hiring staff, training staff, and during that time frame, you are cost reimbursement. And then once that startup period is over, then it would shift into units of service. So great question. I'm glad you asked for that.
Thank you.
Vanessa.
I just want to clarify, I believe it was Felicia who had a question about the alumni services and being able to use the funds from value added. So are we able to provide incentives to those participants through value added funds?
So yes, you can utilize value added funds or flex funds to help support families that are receiving alumni services. You would propose what kind of incentives you want to include, and if you're recommended for funding within our negotiation of the contract, we would review that proposal and then negotiate if we're not comfortable with what's being proposed.
Thank you.
Sean?
I'm sorry, I just have one additional question and then I promise I'll stop.
No apologies. This is good. I'm sure someone else is thinking the same thing. They just haven't raised their hand.
Okay. If we are considering changing from an existing model that we're contracted under to a different model, would we be starting over with a new 90-day startup period and then start delivering services? Or could we have some hybrid of that because we already have the team in place? We just need the training and the implementation of the new model. Would we propose in our application how that transition would look? Or would we be eligible for the full 90 days of startup? How would that work?
Oh, hold on, John. You can propose in the application how you'd like it to work. And then if recommended for funding, when we begin the contract negotiations, we'll talk that through further. But it could be both. You could be eligible for the 90 days. You could have a hybrid of that. You tell us in that application what would work for you. And then if recommended for funding, we'll negotiate that further with you.
Thank you.
Cynthia Moreno, I see that you turned off your microphone. Did you want to say something?
No, I did that by accident. I apologize.
Okay. No problem. Just checking. Vanessa, did you have another question?
Oh, sorry. No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Am I missing? Oh, I see a new hand. Stacy.
Hi, I am with the Children's Film Society, and I have a quick question. I was wondering if you would allow for stipends for paid interns.
We'll answer that in writing, Stacy. So
Okay.
look for the answer when we release the Q&A, the pre-bid Q&A document.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, Walter, you're next.
The Q&A bid document, that will be released on what platform? Is that going to be on the CAPS? Okay, and I'm sorry to ask this.
Yes, it'll be released on the CAPS.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a very, very basic question. I went to CAPS, I could not find the application with all of the windows for uploading and all that. Where is it?
What are you're looking for? The pre-bid Q&A document?
Well, the pre-bid that hasn't come out yet, but also the RFP itself with all of the where to upload it and all that.
Okay, so later on in this pre-bid, Trisha is going to show where the the 5 applications, how you can locate them. So yeah, we'll show you that.
I apologize for that earliness. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the question.
Okay, anyone else? So we've done the review of family strengthening programs. We're going to move on to supporting moms. However, if you think of a question later on for family strengthening, you may still ask. I just want to move on to the next program area. This new program area, well, it's not new for us, but it is different than family strengthening. Supporting moms as mothers overcoming maternal stress programs. For this, you would also submit a separate application. So the intent, and I'm just going to call it moms because it's easier and that's what we call this program area. But moms programs are intended to provide services that are voluntary, in the home, and therapeutic, which aim to address prenatal or postpartum maternal emotional distress. The desired population for the supporting moms programs is pregnant women or women with children less than 1 year of age at the time of enrollment, whose primary issue is prenatal or postpartum maternal emotional distress. The participant must meet a minimum of 2 risk factors. One of the 2 risk factors must be that the desired participant exhibits symptoms of depression and or anxiety for more than 2 weeks that have impacted daily functioning and are otherwise uncharacteristic. We also have a requirement that participants that are enrolled in the MOMS program meet at least one of the risk factors that are listed on page 24. And I am going to mention the same thing about what works for those of you that have been on the call, have already heard it. For anyone that joined us after, this is the research piece. And we also have an attachment for research, which is specific to the MOMS programs. And we highly encourage you to read through the research in making a decision on whether this is a program that your agency would be a good fit for. So the program components for moms, that is on page 26. Let me scroll through here, make sure I'm okay. Programs that serve this population must demonstrate the provision of the following program components. Initial assessment, because this is a therapeutic program area, must have a trauma screen. Ages and stages, treatment plan, case management, paternal involvement as applicable, parenting skills, bonding attachment, prenatal services. Also very important to have flexibility in service delivery. And also promoting family self-sufficiency. Oh, and number 11 was psychotherapy. So pharmacotherapy. I knew I was going to butcher that. Programs to serve this population are encouraged to demonstrate the provision of the following program components to enhance service delivery. So again, we just went through the list of those that are required, and this following list is those that are encouraged to enhance. So we encourage group sessions for moms participants, alumni services, system of care support. So that also includes supporting moms providers to become actively involved with the children's strategic plan, which brings together various entities to provide input and work collaboratively on system issues that impact maternal and child health. And so that section for this program area was much shorter, but we have concluded the description in the document for moms, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Any questions for anyone that may be interested in applying for moms? Okay, Debbie, I see your hand. Hi.
Hi. Is there a maximum that we can apply for? A maximum amount?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
There's not a maximum. You just have to submit those applications separately in the system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Felicia?
Hi, good afternoon again. For the program design chart section, when you're indicating the number of participants to be served, is that just the identified client, or does it include all family members that are receiving services in the household, the siblings, the mother, the father?
Felicia, what page are you on, please?
It's in both
I'm
moms
not sure
and
that I'm
family.
following you.
It's in moms and family strengthening. In the family strengthening one, it is actually on both of them. It's on page 5 of 7. In the digital version with the 201 pages, it's page, give me 1 second, I'll find it. It's a little further past where we went. That's why I didn't ask it last go round. So I'm finding it. 1 second. Where's the chart? Where's the chart? Page. Oh yeah, it goes in, it's in the actual family strengthening and mom's part. It's not in the long portion. So it's page 5 of 7.
Okay, if you could repeat the question one more time, and I'll have Maria weigh in, or we will answer in writing.
So the program design, yes, the program design chart, when it asks for the service name, the description, and then the number of participants to be served, is that number based on just the one identified client, or is that based on all the family members in the household that you're providing services to?
It's the identified client.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. For us, a family is a client. So if you have a family of 20, it's one client. If you have a family of 4, it's one client.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Hi, my name's Lisa Chivijan. I'm with Every Mother's Advocate. We were looking at the possibility of applying for this and collaborating or, with a therapy organization. So we would do all the mom services, but we would be referring. So, I mean, if we're a collaboration, that is something that would be considered.
So Lisa, just to be clear, you're asking if we would consider an application that is a partnership between a couple of entities? Yes, absolutely. We encourage partner applications.
So as far as the viability goes, because we're applying, it would be all of our, financial viability would be put in. We wouldn't have to do them for both, or we would?
Just for one.
The one?
Sorry, this is Kathleen. You'd only have to apply the financial viability section. You only have to do it once.
Okay, thank you.
And Kathleen, it would be for the lead agency, correct?
It would be for the lead agency, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions specific to mom's programming? Going once, going twice. Okay, moving on to the next program area. Next, we're going to talk about kinship and kinship legal services, beginning on page 28. The statement of desired community results. The intent of kinship and kinship legal programs is to maintain a stable home for families in which a child or children are being raised by relative or non-relative caregivers because the biological parents are unable to do so, with the goal of preventing foster or institutional care. The primary desired population is informal families. So this is kinship families. So this is different than ChildNet's kinship programs. So this is again informal for families, for kinship families, to help prevent formal care. And so the next section, I will repeat the same for kinship programs, is related to the research. And we highly encourage you to read through the document and all the research that's been done and provided for you to help see if this is an area that might be a good fit for your organization. Next, we're going to move on to program components for kinship. So for kinship programs, what we've done and what we are going to continue to do is to provide a menu of services available to families. The agencies selected will be expected to work in partnership with the selected kinship legal service provider to ensure ongoing communication and coordination of legal service delivery. Programs that serve this population must demonstrate the provision of the following program components: assessment, service plan, case plans, case management. Let me clarify. That may confuse some that because I said case plans. So case management and service plans that help drive the delivery and the services that are needed for case management. And you'll see lots of examples in the document on page 30, beginning on 30 and 31. Also, we see supportive informal counseling, respite care, parenting education, and the programs Maria referred to earlier. The parenting programs for this area are the curriculums are Nurturing Parenting Program, Strengthening Families Programs. These are the ones that we put in this document. The proposals are not limited to the above mentioned curricula. However, if funded, proposed curricula must be approved by CSC. Some model program trainings may be cost prohibitive to agencies who are not already invested in this model. We also want to see caregiver youth support groups, family building events, alumni services, flexibility in service delivery. Again, meaning that you're available to provide services to families at times that are convenient for them. And that includes weekends and evenings as applicable. So before we move on to the kinship legal piece, I just want to open it up for questions.
So,
Hi, Mike.
can you hear me? So I wanted to ask, in terms of referrals for the kinship, would that be in partnership with the court system, or would that be in partnership with CHONET, or is it just we go out and find? What does that referral base look like? And if not, what is expected of us in terms of recruitment? Is it like traditional recruitment as it relates to the services?
So Mike, these are not families that are being served by ChildNet. They're not formal kinship arrangements through ChildNet. These would be community families, and we are offering them kinship services in order to hopefully prevent them from going into the child welfare system. So the applicant who proposes for kinship would need to have referral sources identified and know that those referral sources can provide enough referrals for the program. So it's, so it really is up to and I'll be honest, I'll share that at times we've had applicants submit who don't have that worked out, and then they struggle with referrals. So that's something that would have to be, we would strongly encourage applicants to identify referral sources for informal kinship as they're considering applying for this area of service.
Now, and my follow-up to that, so particularly in Black and Brown communities, kinship often look different from a culture standpoint, and who may be considered as that kinship partner may be different than what's traditional. Is there any guidelines toward that, or is this authentically to cultures and yeah, I guess I'll probably stop there. Would this be a more authentic way of looking at it as it relates to kinship in the culture that they are in?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So, for example, let's say
the kinship families.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the kinship families can be family members or non-family members.
Okay. Is there any legal document that is needed to display that they have this agreement in place, or in terms of that they have the guardianship, I should say? Is that needed or no?
So no. So
okay.
Part of the services that kinship offers is a collaboration with a legal service provider that helps kinship families obtain that level of, for example, the guardianship papers. Okay. So that's part of the wraparound services that the family would receive.
Okay, thank you.
Linka?
Hello. One of the questions I had was, say if we do decide to apply for more than one of these programs, can we combine the family building event and make it that, if we do a topic, have all these programs attend? Is there any possibility to combining the family building events?
So we'll answer that in writing.
Thank you.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi again. I need to go back to moms for a quick second. I didn't have the document in front of me and I finally found it. And I guess it's going back to the question that Vanessa had raised before and Maria had answered. I just want to clarify because it seems like other categories are able to choose other parenting programs. And I just noticed that there are only 2 listed. And can you confirm if we are able to select something additional than what's listed?
So, and Debbie, thank you, because I have a note to myself that I need to clarify that because I misspoke.
Okay.
So, yes, I was answering about family strengthening and wasn't in the right section. In moms, as stated on, I think it's page 25, the list of programs are not to be an exhaustive list. So we provide you with models that we've researched and are we funded and we feel meet the intent of the mom's services, but you are not limited in choosing those models. So I apologize for my misstatement earlier. I hope that clarifies it. You're not restricted to only the models listed under the mom section of the procurement. You can submit for other models.
Perfect.
But I
Thank
wanted
you so much.
You're welcome. And we do, just to be clear, we do require that wanted to be clear that you have to include both a therapeutic intervention and a parenting intervention. Both have to be included.
Got it. Thank you again.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, your questions are so helpful. Thank you. Mike, did you have another question?
Well, no,
Hand
not,
is
I'm
still-
sorry. I'll put my hand down.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Anyone else? Questions about kinship? Okay, so next I'm going to discuss on page 33, program components for kinship legal. The kinship legal program funded under this procurement must provide legal advocacy and assistance to kinship families. The program will work exclusively with the families referred by CSC funded kinship programs and will be expected to work in partnership with the referring agencies to ensure ongoing communication and coordinated legal service delivery. So in a sense, this is a closed referral group. Legal services and kinship are together. It's separate application, potentially separate providers, but that's who the population. So the referrals for kinship legal come from the CSC funded kinship programs. And so anyone applying for kinship legal would submit a separate application in CAPS. So programs that serve this population must demonstrate the provision of the following program components: legal advocacy and assistance, and self-advocacy kinship legal clinics. And so that concludes the kinship legal section. Do we have any questions for kinship legal?
I have a question.
I can't see who's speaking. Oh, is that Janet?
It is Maddie. Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Janet.
It's for
Go
kinship,
ahead,
not
please.
the legal piece. In terms of transportation, can we utilize flex funds for transport for large groups?
Transport, can you clarify your question?
Transportation. If we have a large group that we're attending an event, can we pay for outside transportation like A1A service?
So Janet, the transportation will be can you give us more detail about what the transportation, you're picking up families from different homes and you're throughout the county and you're driving them someplace? Could you give us more detail?
No. Normally we would have them meet at kids, but it's a large group, so we would need to transport them from kid to the event, to the venue, and back to kid.
And you're asking, can you include that in the budget? Can you include transporting families from kid to another venue for, let's say, you were saying a family building event?
Correct.
And just so that I understand better, the families can't all meet at the venue, venue where the event's going to take place. Can you provide why?
Some can. Some don't drive at all. So, it's difficult for them to meet. Some do.
So Janet, I would just say in your budget, you would propose that cost. And if there's a place within the application when you're to explain why you need that, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Sorry,
Hi,
Liz Myers, MHA. So I just want to clarify, there is no more trauma screens required in kinship. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. And my other question is, if we were to put in 2 applications, do we do the entire application twice, or is the beginning part only done once?
So Liz, you're asking if you're going to submit an application
in 2 different areas.
In 2 different areas. You would need to review the questions and make sure that your answers are applicable depending on the area that you're submitting for.
I just meant the very first part, which is all the, I'm looking at it now, sorry. Just like the initial information about the agency and accredited and things like that. Like the information that's the same, organizational capacity.
So with the technical assistance that we provide, we don't provide technical assistance regarding how you answer your questions. I can't answer the question, Liz. I would say read the questions and you would decide how best to answer it depending on the application. If you feel it's the exact same question with the exact same answer, you can make that determination. If you want to tweak the answers, you can make that determination.
I don't think, I'm talking about like our history, the history of the agency. It's not going to change from one application to the other. So do we just do full applications for each section?
So yes, every application has to have all those questions answered.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions for kinship or kinship legal? Okay, I don't see any little virtual hands, so I am going to move on to page 33, supervised visitation. So supervised visitation is an area that came about from conversations with family court judges and a gap that has been identified in the community. And as you know, we do a lot of focus groups I mentioned earlier and surveys to prepare for our document. And this is an area that was needed. So in response, we've put in supervised visitation into the document. So the intent of supervised visitation programs is to ensure the safety and welfare of children and adults and foster an ongoing relationship between the non-custodial parent and children in a safe and structured environment. The desired population is families referred by the Broward County Family Court requiring supervised visitation between one or more children and the non-custodial parents. Services shall be provided to children and families living in Broward County. All families must be court ordered. So court ordered by family court. So that's important to note. The program components for supervised visitations are as follows. The supervised visitation programs under this procurement must provide supervised visitations, intakes, court reports, court representation as required by subpoena. The program staff is expected to work in partnership with the Broward County Court and ensure ongoing communication and coordinated delivery of services. The program that serves this population must demonstrate the provision of the following components: intake, supervised visitation. So on average, families will participate in about 8 sessions of supervised visitation, but additional sessions can be added as deemed necessary and approved by Broward County Family Court. Court reports as mentioned, court representation, and this number 5, supervised visitation security. I'm going to go ahead and read through all of it as it is quite important. Security issues must be addressed in both the physical plant and facility structure and programmatically through procedures including, but not limited to, the following: the layout of the premises, which permits custodial and visiting parents and other adults to be kept physically and visually separate. Procedures for arrival and departure of clients so that contact between them does not occur. Use of metal detector if available to the individual provider. A relationship with local law enforcement. Off-duty law enforcement services must be provided for supervised visitation cases when safety issues require the level of this security. So again, that is required only if there's a safety concern. Supervised visitation fees. Fees must be assessed and may be charged in accordance with the following. Each family will be assessed fees based on provider developed and CSC approved sliding fee schedule. The fees among the users of the service, unless otherwise agreed on by the users of the service, determined by the referring agency or ordered by the court. So that concludes supervised visitation. Does anyone have any questions? And this is a new area for us, so please feel free to ask if you're interested. Yes, Walter.
Under 5.4, big 5.4, court representation. This will be provided by the visitation specialist. Do you mean representation or do you mean court testimony? Or is that actual representation?
It's court testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all very much for your time, attention, and wonderful questions. And now, oh, I do see another question. Arlene. Arlene, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I have a question, and it really surrounds several of the components of this RFP announcement. And that would be around, we talk about groups for families, but what about for the children? Are we allowed to do group for the children, support groups for the children as well?
So Arlene, yes, the alumni services, for example, can be for the parents and or the children. The family building events are for parents and children. The parent education can be for parents and children.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like there are no more questions. So I will go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Trisha Dowell, Assistant Director.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Trisha Dowell, one of the Assistant Directors in Program Services, and I'm just going to go over a few of the pieces of general information about procurements. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CAP system. So I'll hold that part till the end. So I want to start on page 35. So if Andrea, if you're able to share the screen and start on page 35 under Cone of Silence. As soon as a procurement is advertised, CSC staff are under a cone of silence. So the only time we can answer verbal questions about the procurement would be now during this pre-bid conference. And the only time we can accept written question is during the period for submission of written questions via CAPS. And that will take place, as Maria discussed, that will open up today, January 23rd at 4 o'clock, and will close on Wednesday, January 25th at 4 o'clock. And then moving on to page 36, the pre-bid conference, which is where we are right now. This is your one opportunity to have live interaction with us and ask questions. Again, if you have questions afterwards, you would submit them in CAPS. And just to be clear, you would have to actually go into the CAPS system to submit your questions. You will see in the top tab of your application, once the period opens, you will see an ask a question link. You would just click on that, and that's where you would submit your questions. And we cannot accept emailed questions, so please submit all your questions through the CAPS system. And I'll show you where that will pop up in a little bit. As Maria said, the response to those questions will be posted on February 1st. That will also be in the CAP system under the solicitation attachments. So again, when I share my screen and go into CAPS, I'll show you where that would be. So I'm going to skip CAPS for a minute and just go on to page 38, which is the terms of agreement. So the initial term of this contract for all 5 of these areas will be October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And this procurement will then have 3 optional renewal periods after that initial term. And at the end of the paragraph, you will see language regarding our core contract, and the core contract template is also included in the RFP document as attachment 16. We want to make very clear that the terms and conditions of the core contract are not negotiable. So please ensure that you read that core contract and that you're comfortable with what is in there. If you get recommended for funding, you can't then come to us and say, I can't do this or I can't do that. I'm not okay with different things that are in the core contract. So it is not negotiable. Please ensure your organization has reviewed it and that they're prepared to implement it as it's written. And then if we can skip, Andrea, to page 43, I just want to touch briefly on conflict of interest. If you believe you have a conflict of interest as an applicant, you must disclose the nature and the existence of this conflict to us. And you will see as you start going through the application, there is a question about this where you would answer in that question, and it will go into more details about what a conflict might be. And then on page 44 is the application rating tools. This is the rating tool. The rating tools are what the raters are going to receive and what they're going to be looking at as they rate your application. So we really always recommend that you review the rating tool and compare it to your answers and ensure that your answers are within the parameters of the rating tool. So there are, since there's 5 applications we're talking about today, there are 5 separate rating tools. So whichever application that you're applying for, you would want to pull up that attachment, the rating tool that goes along with it, and read through that. Before I move on to CAPS, is there any questions about the items I just touched on? I'm not seeing anything. So I am going to talk a little bit about CAPS, which is on page 36 of the RFP. And CAPS is the contract administration and procurement system. This is CSC's web-based system for the submission and rating of procurement applications. There is a video available on the CSC website and within the applications themselves, which goes through in much more detail than I will today about how to navigate the CAP system. And I'll show you when I share my screen exactly where you can find those videos. Any technical questions on how to use CAPS can be submitted to the CSC Help Desk, which is helpdesk@cscbroward.org. These can be submitted up until the due date of the application, and we do try our best to answer any help desk questions as quickly as we can, but we cannot guarantee you that we'll get back to you immediately. And the help desk is also only going to be open during our business hours. So please keep that in mind as you plan out the completion of your application. So pay close attention to all the due dates and the timeline, and just don't put yourself in a position where you're, just trying to use the system maybe for the first time when a deadline is almost due, because if you reach out, we might not be able to get back to you immediately. And technical assistance on CAPS would broadly include things like the system doesn't appear to be working as it should, you're getting some type of an error message, maybe you're unable to submit something or move on to the next page in your application. Those are all things that you would reach out to the help desk for. It wouldn't include any type of programmatic questions or any questions about like the content of how you should answer a particular question. And I do want to point out a change, especially if you're an agency who's applied with us in the past, and that's the proposal contact. In the past, you would fill out your certificate of accuracy and compliance, and within that document, we would ask you who the proposal contact is. We've taken that information off the certificate of accuracy and compliance and put it within the CAP system. So you will see that in the very first page you get to when you start an application, where you have several questions about your organization and address, and there'll be a spot that asks for your proposal contact. So we mention it there, but I just want to be clear that that person is the person who would be contacting for cures. So just keep in mind the time frame for cures, which is in the timetable. So anytime during that period, we might need to reach out to your agency regarding a cure, and that would be the person that we contact. So please make sure it's someone who is available during that time period. The proposal contact is also the person that we would send the information to about your interview date and time. So that's the only person in your agency that's going to receive that information. So again, please keep those things in mind as you decide who your proposal contact is going to be. I see a couple questions. I don't know if you guys want to hold them until I demonstrate CAPS, or if you want to ask them now.
If I may, Tricia, my question is related to the help desk. If we reach out to the help desk for technical questions, it is not considered a breach of cone of silence, and will they know not to answer questions if they think it's substantive and we think it's technical?
Yes, you would just submit whatever the issue is, and there's a screening process as those come in, and they would get assigned to their correct person. And if it's something that's not within the purview of technical assistance, then we would let you know that. And if it is a technical assistance, then we would reach out to assist you with that.
So my question, hi Tricia.
Hi.
Nice to see you. My question is, well, in the past, when we used to submit those RFP and procurement, we were able to kind of have our copy, that was in the past. So since we're going to start submitting, is anything that the system will allow us to have like a copy of what we submit or something? Is there like in PDF or something?
Yes, you're always able to access your own application within the system, and there is an option for you to print out the entire application and have it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So Andrea, if you don't mind stopping sharing, and I will share my screen. Okay, so First, I just want to show, some people have already gone past this part, but if this is brand new, I just want to help you navigate to how you would get to the application. So there's a couple places you could go to. We have this scrolling banner on our front page, and I'm on our home page, which is cscbroward.org. One of the options in here is the Family Support RFP, and there's a link here for more information. The second way you could go is under providers and funding opportunities. And here you will also see the Family Supports 2023 RFP and view more. If you click over where I just showed you or here, you're going to come to this page, which we'll talk a little bit about the Family Supports 2023 RFP, but I do want to point out this is the first place that you could go and watch the video on how to apply through CAPS. So because the second place, you're already logged into CAPS. So for people who aren't as familiar and they want to kind of start from the beginning, you can start the video here from the CSC website. If you do want to move forward with an application, you would click here where it says for more information and to apply, click here. And this is where you'll come to the CAPS funding opportunity pages. And currently these are the 5 current funding options, which is all of the family supports that we've been discussing today. So you can see clearly they're all delineated here. You would want to choose which application that you want to start an application for. And if you want to submit, let's say for family strengthening and for kinship, this is the page that you would go back to. So you could click on family strengthening, start an application. Then if you wanted to submit one for kinship, you would come back to this CAPS, kind of like the CAPS homepage, and you would click on kinship and start an application in there. Once you click on whichever one, that title you'll always see it at the top. So here I'm clicking on family strengthening, and you can see it says family strengthening, so you would know you're in the right place. If I went back and clicked on kinship legal, same thing, you're going to see it right here at the top. So you'll see the first page you'll come to is the grant details page, which is going to give you the entire timeline, which is similar to the timeline that is in the RFP document itself. And here is where all the attachments are. So I know there was a question about how to access the RFP itself. It's right here. You would click on here and download this PDF. This has the entire RFP with all the attachments within it. And then there's a couple attachments that we uploaded separately for you because they need to be in Excel format. So the CSC financial viability test and the budget are both here for you to download in Excel. And this is the second place where you'll see the video. So this video will always be available to you in all 5 of the applications. And then we'll talk more about this second video when Fiscal does their presentation, but this is where you would find the video about how to prepare your budget. So if you get here and you decide, yes, I want to move forward with an application in this area, you would click on start a new application, and it's going to take you here. I'm not going to go past this for now. You would need to either log in if you were an existing user, or if you are a new user, you would put your information here to register, and then it would start moving you through the application. A little bit later, when Fiscal goes over their piece, I will share again. This time I'll be actually within an application to show you the Fiscal option available to you. And at that point, I can show you where you would submit a question during the period for submission of written questions. So is there any questions about the CAPS system?
My question is actually related to the fiscal viability question in CAPS, though. It asks you if you're already a provider, and if you say yes, it doesn't ask you to upload any documents. Is that enough for the fiscal viability, or is there another link in CAPS where we're supposed to do something additional if we're already funded?
No, and I will go over this in more detail, but to answer your question, there's going to be the 4 options available to you. You may choose to upload documents, and if you choose those options, an upload box will present itself. But if you're saying that you're currently a CSC provider and that CSC already has your most updated information, you would simply just check that box, and that's letting us know that we already have your information.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other CAPS questions?
Yes, if I may. So I'm here and I opened one of the pages in caps. How come it doesn't appear in my other caps page where I've done rating, for example? Or are there 2 different caps pages?
I'm not sure exactly where you're logging in or what login you're using. So an agency, if you're already an agency that's used the CAP system before, you would log in through that. You're saying you're logging in and you're not seeing your agency?
No, I see the stuff that I've done before. And then also my ongoing contract forwarding for budgets and all of that. I see that, but I don't see the kinship. Are they 2 separate? Are there 2 separate caps, or should it all be on one caps?
It should be the same, but I'm going to ask you if you could submit through the help desk,
I
and then
will.
that way we can
Thank you.
talk offline and I can try and help you with that.
And that's the kind of information that would be an appropriate help desk question that's not considered a cone of silence issue.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tricia.
You're welcome.
Walter, for me, I did that this morning. I had to log off and re-log in for it to be showing.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. Thank you, Juliana.
Any other questions on CAPS? Okay, I'm gonna move on then, and we're gonna move to the measuring impact and continuous learning section, which will be presented by Dr. Marissa Greif-Hackett.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes? All right, good. So this will be very brief. I'm going to very quickly discuss some of the ideas in the measuring impact and continuous learning sections, which are pages 8 through 13. And also, I will not be talking specifically, but want to draw your attention to all of the attachments that have various examples of performance measures that we have looked at in the past in the various program areas that are being procured today. So I'm not going to be going over those specifically, but I want you to note that they are there and that you would review them on your own. So we collect and report out on performance measurement data in order to be accountable to our taxpayers. And sorry, was there a comment? No? Okay. And then also to help improve our programs and all elements of the systems that we work with. So we do this in a lot of different ways. We have a variety of performance measures that we look at, and we also like to involve and engage providers in these discussions in developing our measurements. So we use the concept of results-based accountability to build our performance measure models, and we ask and answer 3 questions. How much did we do? How well did we do it? And is anyone better off? So those are our guiding principles for constructing our performance measurement matrices. And you can see that in the examples in the attachments. And we also try to have sort of a culture of continuous learning, which is feedback between providers and ourselves, and program enhancements throughout the assessment process. So as I mentioned, you can see through the attachment pages and also in remaining pages of this section, some examples of performance measures we've looked at in the past. And that would be sort of the model that we would follow with going forward. So that is my brief introduction to performance measures and how we do them. And I'll open it up for questions. I can't really see everyone's hands, so if anyone's got eyes on hands, that would be helpful. I'm not seeing any hands. So with that, I'll give you 10 more seconds. All right, well, if something comes up, you can submit your questions in the online module for that. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathleen Campbell, and I'm the Director of Finance. You have been hearing quite a bit about this financial viability section and the financial viability test. I'll be going over that, but I just want to give you my view on the financial viability test. Maybe that will help you to see how important this part is. It's like the front door to this RFP application. So once you get through the front door and satisfy all the requirements, you're good to go with the application, okay? All right, that being said, all applicants seeking funding from CSE must submit through CAPS the most recent audited or reviewed financial statements. Agencies with annual revenues that are greater than 500,000 must submit audited financial statements, right? So those are the large agencies typically. Agencies with annual revenues of less than 500,000, these are usually the smaller agencies, they may submit reviewed financial statements. Now, reviewed financial statements are not audited statements. They don't cost as much as an audit would cost. These statements must be accompanied by a letter from a Florida CPA, right? Now, the most recent audit is defined as an audit that covers the agency's latest fiscal year end and must be completed and available to the CSE within 180 days from the date of the agency's fiscal year end. So what that is saying, if the agency's fiscal year ended on June 30, the audit must be completed and available by December 31. So if you have a June 30 year end and you plan to apply for this RFP, your audit should have already been completed by December 31 because that's the latest one that we will use. Now, for this application, the audit or the reviewed financial statements must be submitted by uploading the document to the financial viability section in CAPS, and that must be done by February 6th at 4 p.m. Now, if the applicant is currently funded by the CSE and has already submitted the most recent audited financial statements, they must indicate this in the financial viability section, and Tricia will be taking you through that shortly. Now, if the applicant is applying for multiple areas of service under this RFP, the applicant is only required to upload the financial viability section once. The financial viability information will be automatically copied over to other applications. So the applicant should make sure that if they already have submitted the information for the first application and they start the next application, they should ensure that they see that the financial viability section is copied over. If you don't see that, you can submit a ticket to the help desk. All right. Now, what is the test? So the CSE will perform a financial viability test on these statements that were submitted into CAPS, right? And that will determine the maximum funding that may be awarded. Now, if there are limitations, the applicant can only be funded up to the limit across all programs. If the applicant chooses to use a fiscal sponsor who passes the fiscal viability test without limitations, there'll be no funding restriction. Notice of your financial viability test results will be sent out to you on February 10. Applicants will receive an email with the results and will also see the results once they log into their CAPS application. It is the applicant's responsibility to check the system for their results and respond to whatever is out there as applicable. Now, if your test results indicate that the applicant needs a fiscal sponsor and the applicant decides to apply with a fiscal sponsor, the applicant or fiscal sponsor must submit and upload the fiscal sponsor information and audited financial statements in CAP. The deadline to submit the fiscal sponsor's information is February 17 at 4 p.m. Now I'm going to pass it over to Tricia so she can show you what the financial viability section looks like in CAPS.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, so now if you can see my screen now, I am within an application. So from where I showed you before, let's say you get past those couple first pages where you're putting your agency information, then you would be in this page that we're looking at now. You'll see the entire application, all the different sections here along the right side. You can choose to modify any section. You can go in order, you can go back and forth, it's up to you. But the very first section you're going to see is the agency financial viability section. And please note the section deadline is different from the rest. This section deadline is, as we've mentioned, February the 6th at 4 p.m. Whereas the rest of the sections you're going to see March 7th at 4 p.m. because that's the entire application deadline. But the agency financial viability must be done before that by February 6th at 4 p.m. So you would click to modify this section, and here you're going to see the 4 options that are available to you. Please note up here, it says this section can't be modified or recalled once it's submitted. So once you choose an option and hit this box to mark this section as completed and move forward, you can't go back and modify it. So please be very careful when you're completing this section that you're choosing the option that you want and that you upload the documents that you want to upload. So as Kathleen reviewed, there are these 4 options. You're going to see either your audited statements or your reviewed statements. So if you're a larger agency and you're doing your audited statements, you would click this and you'll see that an upload box becomes available to you to upload those audited statements. If you're going to be uploading your reviewed statements, you would click there and you would see a different upload box come up. Or option 3, I think we discussed a little earlier, is if you're currently funded by the CSC and you've already given CSC your most recent audited or reviewed financial statements, you would click this box. And that's all you would need to do. You don't upload anything. You're simply telling us that we already have your information. The 4th option is that you already know as an agency that you are going to have a fiscal sponsor. So that could be because you're currently funded by us and you know that you need a fiscal sponsor because you're already using one, or you've done the fiscal viability test yourself and you see that you are going to require a fiscal sponsor. So whichever reason why, if you choose to have a fiscal sponsor and you don't want to submit your agency's financial statements, you would click that box. And that would be all you would need to do for this section. So whichever option you choose, and I will go through and submit this one so you see what happens. I'm going to choose option 3.
Before you submit, Tricia, there was a question out there with regards to if they could resubmit a modified audit document. I'm assuming that this person may have uploaded their audit already and they got a newer audit or a modified audit and they want to resubmit that. If that is the case, if they have just saved it, then they could modify it. For on the screen where you see that modify button, you could modify it and go back and upload a new document. However, if you have already submitted it, then you cannot recall it. In that case, you can email it to me if that is the case, if you cannot resubmit. All
Thank you,
right.
Kathleen. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to choose option 3, and then please remember, and you'll see this at the bottom, I think, of every section, but you have to mark the section as completed in order for the system to recognize that you are done with this section. So if you choose any of these options, you upload something and you just click next or save and continue later, it will not be submitted. You have to mark this section as completed. But again, don't do that unless you're 100% sure that you are ready to submit this section. So let's say we're going to mark it as completed and click next. And you'll see here, it shows that you completed this section on today's date, 1/23/23. So sometimes people have asked questions, how do we know that you've received it? You would see that it was completed, and you'll see the green check mark when you're in the modify section. I just want to be clear though, if you go back to application details, you'll see that it will still tell you that the section was completed and the date it was completed, but the red check is still there because this section isn't fully completed until we give you your results and you respond to those results. So once those 2 steps happen, you would have a green check mark here. And for all the other sections, as you complete them, you would click modify, you would mark them as done and hit next, and you will start to see all the green check marks. And in order to fully submit the application, when you're ready, everything here would need to show a green check mark. So that's just a couple things we get questions about, so I wanted to review that. So I'm going to turn it back to Kathleen to finish her section.
All right, thank you, Trish. So if your agency does not complete that section and see that green check mark, know that you cannot proceed with the application. And that section must be completed by February 6th, right? So we don't want to have any issues there. All right, and now onto the program budget. A budget must be submitted with this proposal. The budget is included in attachment 20, and as you saw earlier in caps under the attachment section. You must use the single site budget form. That's the proposed budget template that we want you to use. And when you submit it, you should not, when you upload it, it should not be in PDF. We want it to be in Excel. You download it in Excel, complete it in Excel, and upload it in Excel, right? There's a video that Tricia referred to on how to create the budget that's located down there in the solicitation attachment section in caps. All right, the budget attachment 20 also gives you some guidelines as to what we're looking for in your budget. Now on page 39, it talks about startup expenses under this proposal. Providers may request a startup period so that staff members may be hired and trained, sites prepared, curriculum materials purchased, and participants recruited prior to direct service delivery. Now, the expenditures associated with this initial phase should be included within your startup portion of the budget and the budget narrative. Only costs incurred on or after the contract start date and before the end of the first 90 days of the contract period shall be eligible for startup payment. And startup is going to be paid on a cost reimbursement basis. It will not be included in the units, right? Now onto units, which we describe further on pages 40 to 42. Expenses that are not reimbursed on a cost reimbursement basis are rolled up into a unit cost. And the units will be determined by each individual program during the contract negotiation process, all right? So we have various units based on the service area you're applying for. We have family intervention units, case management, support training and coaching, family building events, legal advocacy units, supervised visitation, outreach units for both scheduled and unscheduled home visits, respite care, individual youth development, and so on. Now, this proposal requires that a 5% match be provided, right? So CSC will fund up to 95% of the program costs, but we want the providers to have a little skin in the game, and that requirement is at 5%. That match must also be noted in your budget. Now, applicants may request up to 12% for administrative costs. 12% of the total program cost of your budget may be administrative costs, right? And administrative costs are used to support the operation of the entire agency. Now, on pages 48 to 50, and in attachment 17 of the RFP document, you will see the financial viability test. Now, this financial viability test is conducted annually on all CSC funded programs. So it's not just at the time of application as it is now, but is every time, every year for all providers, right? So when we ask each provider to submit their audited financial statement each year, and this may result in the need for or the use of a fiscal sponsor, all right? The audited financial statements are subjected to a financial viability test that incorporates a review of various fiscal elements, which may restrict the maximum total amount that may be awarded to an agency within the CSC fiscal year. So we look at ratios such as the current ratio, the debt ratio, months of liquid net assets, to determine the test results. Okay, now there are 4 basic outcomes of this test, right? And this is very important. Now, if an applicant scores 14 points or more, then we have no limitation to funding. If the score falls between 10 to 13, then there's a conditional award amount which will be limited to a maximum of $226,200 annually, and that's across all programs. So if you score conditionally, it affects your CSC allocations across all programs. Now, if you score between 6 and 9 points, the agency's status is considered provisional, and the total award amount will be limited to a maximum of $84,800 annually. Any score under 6 points will require the agency or the applicant to obtain a qualified fiscal sponsor whose financial audit has no limitations, right? So all agencies or applicants are strongly encouraged to have the financial viability test performed by their fiscal department prior to submitting this proposal. Now, you can find the test, you can download the test in Excel form on the CSC website, and it's also available in the CAPS for procurement, right? You do not need to complete the test and submit it with your proposal. We don't need you to do that. We will do that. But doing that will help you. If you do your fiscal department runs a test on your financial statements for you, it could tell you right away whether you will need a fiscal sponsor. And if you know upfront that you need a fiscal sponsor, it's best for you just to go ahead and put in your financial viability information with regards to the fiscal sponsor. If you're a smaller agency that does not have audited or reviewed financial statements, you may want to explore the benefits of partnering with a fiscal sponsor to apply for this grant. We will provide the names of the current fiscal sponsors that we use at the CSC in the question and answer document. Now, to give you a little understanding of what the fiscal sponsor's role, you could, there's information on pages 50 to 51 of the RFP document. So the main role of the fiscal sponsor is to receive the funds. We will pay the fiscal sponsor. If you enter into a fiscal sponsor relationship, it will be a tri-party agreement, right? And we also expect that the fiscal sponsor will act in a capacity building role. They will provide you with technical assistance so you can get to the status where you will no longer require a fiscal sponsor, right? If you look at pages 50 to 51 of the RFP document, it gives you the other responsibilities of the fiscal sponsor. So the fiscal sponsor is not just on paper, but the fiscal sponsor will also be required to complete an application in CAPS, complete the section in CAPS that applies to the fiscal sponsor, right? And there are other responsibilities there. Now, am I missing something, Trisha? I see you're sharing your screen.
No, I think Andrea, you're sharing the something else on your screen, not the document.
Okay. All right. So then
there is a question.
Okay. Go
Someone,
ahead.
I think Jeff, you have your.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Farron with Legal Aid. I had a quick question about that deadline for the financial viability test. The deadline of February 6th at 4 p.m. Would we have to submit everything earlier so you could perform all the testing internally you do to see if there's anything additional we need to add such that the green check is in place by 4 p.m. on that date? Or was there some kind of additional days? I heard another date of February 10th. This is my first go around with this, so I just wanted to make sure I knew the deadlines.
Right, very good question, Jeff. So the deadline to submit the document itself to us is February 6th. Now, after February 6th, we will perform the test. If we need anything, we will reach out to you during the period between that time to get any additional information from you. And then we will send you the results by the 10th.
Very good, thank you.
Right, so that you preempted me there. That's what I was gonna say about the fiscal cure process. CSE may request additional clarifying information by email or phone during the period February 6th to 17. So please check your emails and or your messages for requests from us during this time. Failure to respond or provide the requested information in a timely manner may result in the agency's application being rejected. So if after February 6th, we receive your audit and there's missing information and we write to you by email or call you to provide additional information and we don't hear back from you, then you may have forfeited your place in the application. And finally, just a reminder that the budget creation video is located under the solicitation attachment section. Please take some time to go through the video, to watch the video, so you can be better informed in preparing your budget. Any other questions? Wow. Did I answer the question with regards to the lady who wanted information on the modified audit?
So that question was from Children's Harbor, I believe. Did we answer your question?
You answered my question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
So if there are no more questions for Kathleen, just wanted to refer again for you guys to make sure to look at that timetable of important dates, and the first date that you're looking at where you need to submit that, the financial viability information is February 6th by 4 o'clock. Please make sure that you do that if you want to proceed with the application. The pre-bid conference, we talked about this previously. Once the conference ends, You'll have until January 25th at 4 o'clock to submit questions. And Tricia, can you show where in the CAP system they would see where a question would need to be submitted? I will ask, please, if you submit a question, sometimes questions don't provide enough detail. So please make sure if you do submit a question, provide us with sufficient detail where we can give you a thorough answer.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to show you guys this. So again, I'm in an application. So we're not going to see the Ask a Question tab at this moment because it doesn't open until 4 o'clock, but it would be up here in this ribbon. So once 4 o'clock hits, if you're in your application, if you refresh it, you're going to see the Ask a Question tab, and then you would just click there and there will be a box for you to submit your question. I do just want to make a note based on what Maria just said. You would be able to submit a question within any of the 5 applications. So if you have a family strengthening application and a kinship and a supporting moms, it is helpful if you submit the question that you have underneath the correct application. So if you have a question about moms, but you're in your family strengthening application and you submit it there, if you don't give us enough detail, we're going to think you're asking about moms when maybe you're really asking about family strengthening or vice versa. So if you have a question that's specific to an area, please try and make sure you submit it under that area. And if it's a general question, then you could submit it within any of the areas. Any questions?
And we will post the response to the questions in the CAP system by February 1st. So please make sure to go back into the CAP system and check to review that Q&A document. We do reserve the right to summarize the questions if there's, sometimes folks leave words out, and we reserve the right to make the question clearer so that you're better able to understand our answers. I strongly encourage you all to look at that Q&A document. It does supersede this meeting. So we take everything in this meeting and then we put in additional details if it would be helpful to you. We include additional details in the Q&A document. So when the Q&A document is uploaded into CAPS, please review it and make sure to refer to it when you're looking at your application. And Tricia already mentioned this, but also we strongly encourage you to look at the scoring tools that are associated with each application. The scoring tool is the document that raters utilize to score your application. So you basically have the metric there that raters will use to determine your score. So you definitely want to look at that, a scoring tool for your application. Do you have any additional questions for us? Yes, Jeanette.
Hi, I just had a quick question regarding the interviews. Will the interviews be online, like virtual, or will they be in person, or will they be like a combination?
The interviews are going to be virtual.
Great, thank you.
And then you guys will be provided, those who submit an application will be provided with the date and time of the interview. Those date and times are not negotiable. So please, when you get that date and time, you can look now at the dates that are potential interview dates and make sure that you and your team are available on those dates. And then you'll get an email from us basically saying, here's your date, here's your time for the interview. And it will be a virtual interview, and the raters will be also present virtually. Are there any additional questions? Yes, I see Walter and then Arlene.
Jeff asked me this question and I don't have the answer. Are we able to access through CAPS our prior applications or our prior responses from prior cycles?
No, you would need to do a records request to CSC. If you yourself didn't keep that application, then you would need to submit a records request to CSC for your prior application.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Arlene?
Oh yeah, just my last question. So I look at the comprehensive list of services that are inclusive in this RFP. And I think about the families and the communities that we serve and how so often these services, even though they're in separate RFPs, can be needed in one family unit. Are there opportunities for multiple organizations to, how do I say, collaborate so that there is a seamless flow of these services being connected for a family? Because I'm just thinking, so a family is in family strengthening, but they need kinship and they need legal services and all of these different things. So they have to bounce to these different programs. Or how do you see that working for the benefit of a smooth service delivery model for families?
So one of the reasons that we encourage applicants to become familiar with our system of care in this county is exactly what you're describing. Once agencies are recommended for funding, they then are part of a provider community, and not just a CSC provider community, but greater Broward provider community. And we strongly encourage attendance at the Children's Strategic Plan meetings and other funders who have services to become familiar with those services. So it's not uncommon for a family to be receiving kinship services, talking about current day services, and they may need therapy, and then they're connected with a program that we fund that provides therapy for that family, or with a program that, for example, Broward Behavioral Health Coalition funds to provide therapy. So our desire is for our provider community, both funded by CSC and funded by other funders, to link together and provide smooth transitions for families depending on the service they need. We also put in the procurement our encouragement to develop an understanding and even a partnership with the Family Success Centers, with United Way Center for Working Families. And again, it would be to provide a consistent, coordinated level of service for the family. So if a family needs rent assistance, let's say if you're a kinship provider, you would be walking hand in hand with that family over to the Family Success Center and helping them work through that system to get them what they need. So we strongly encourage the partnerships among organizations between, regardless of who's funding what service, for agencies to become familiar with what is available for their families in the community. I hope I answered your question.
You did. So just a last piece to that is, so if, look at all these organizations who are here today, if we were serving one family and that family needed services from different organizations, an organization wouldn't be banned or not able to serve that family because they're already being serviced by a CSC already funded program.
So it's a little bit more nuanced for me, the question. So if someone is receiving, let's say, if I'm receiving therapy from agency A, mental health therapy from agency A that's funded by CSC, I wouldn't also receive the same mental health therapy by agency B that's funded by CSC. So we wouldn't want the same service to be delivered in a duplicative manner. But if it's complementary services, yes, the family could be receiving kinship services funded by CSC, and then the family could also be in an after-school program funded by CSC. That's common, that's fine.
Okay, but under the family strengthening RFP, could they still have that same flexibility?
Sure, if yes, the example I provided, absolutely, that happens. If a family needs therapy and the kinship programs do not provide mental health therapy, they're providing support and case management, but they're not providing formal therapy, then that family can be linked to a family strengthening provider who provides formal therapy. Now, the kinship programs, as an example, will provide parenting education, so there wouldn't be a need to give them another parenting education service when they're getting parenting education, or they should be from kinship. I hope that, so as long as it's
Good.
complementary, but it can't be duplicative.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, then I believe, let me make sure I have my notes, make sure we covered everything. I believe this concludes the Family Support RFP pre-bid conference. And since it is 4 o'clock, the opportunity to ask questions in writing is open for you. And you have until January 25th at 4 o'clock to submit those questions. And then we will post the response to questions by February 1st in the CAP system. So if there's no other questions, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us this afternoon and learning about the Family Support RFP. And we wish you the very best as you explore applying for these services. So thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.